Welcome to From the Logo, the Scores NBA show. I'm your host, Joseph Casciaro. Joining me in studio today, one of my oldest friends in the business, Donnovan Bennett. What's going on, man?
I'm great. Have to say, From the Logo, great name.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I don't know if there is a more oversaturated space than basketball podcasts. So there are a lot of names out there, and before he lost the ability to use the name, like the Low Post was great, right? Just obviously, given the last name, but your name is up there.
Thanks, appreciate it. And then betting content is cash consideration, so it goes pretty well. Goes pretty well.
Also another good one.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of the things going on around the NBA right now, and probably the hottest topic this week is the lack of star appeal, star name, star talent on the floor on any given night. Tom Haberstroh wrote a piece earlier this week that I know got a lot of attention about how essentially most nights to start this season, like literally 50% of what the NBA considers star talent for their player participation policy is not in the lineup, is on the shelf. So let's get right into it with, I think, the first or obvious question, which is this maybe a little overblown, or do you think this is like a legitimate issue that the NBA should be genuinely concerned about?
It is definitely a legitimate issue. It's not a new one, right? This is not a blip. This is not a trend. This is how things have been trending for a long time. I mean, it could be the name of a podcast, although you might have people being like, what's up with this in the search terms? But load management is a thing, and was a thing. It's a joke now, but it was a real thing, as you know, in this city. Alex McKechnie to get Kawhi to the finals, because so often when you're tracking it, these players are up against or in the middle of the red line where all the data is telling you that they're going to get hurt. And I don't know if there's a good fix, although I have an idea. But I mean, here's the scenario, right? To me, it's binary. And when I hear Michael Jordan on NBC talking to Mike Tirico about, like, there's some guy in the 300 level who paid his money and it might be the only time he sees me play, so I got to try hard. Yeah, Mike, and you know what? There are like 2/3 of the possessions when you played, my guy. So, I mean, like, and if we had the data and the information, you know what you would not have been doing? Playing back-to-backs, right? Yeah. Phil Jackson would have said, no, you're not. So it's different, and I think the modern-day player gets crushed. Like, they're whiners, they're babies. They don't want to play. And, like, no. There's no modern-day player. Well, most modern-day players are not putting their hand and be like, I can't go. Yeah. They're being told you're not playing.
They're not saying, I don't care about that guy in the 300 level.
They're not. They're not. But now, that guy in the 300 level is even more incensed because he didn't just pay money for his ticket. He's got a parlay. He's got you on his fantasy team. And so the stakes are high. And he can see this game from everywhere on his phone, on his tablet. So he is more in tune with if someone is playing or not. He's getting a push alert saying in or out of the lineup. Yeah. People sat before. We just didn't really recognize or care. So I think there's this confluence of things that make this a bigger issue. But, like, let's just look at the facts that we know. The players are bigger, stronger, and they're faster. The playing surface has not changed. It is the same size. The possessions has gone up. What you're asking the players to do has gone up.
Quickest pace, by the way, in terms of possessions per game in 39 years so far this season.
Everyone plays fast. Like, it's not like, ooh, the Suns, they play so fast. No, the entire league plays this way. So there's that. And then it trickles down in terms of, I think, the load that these players have on their body at an earlier age. Playing 3 AAU games a day on the weekend, flying across the country, playing games. Back in the day, there were players who literally just played for their high school team.
Yep.
Or they went to camps. But you're not playing like another season before you play another season. So I think the load on those players at an earlier age is greater than we're seeing the tread come off the tires in the pros. I think the other thing is, like, it's more commonplace for players to try to play later in their lives. Everyone loved the fact that Del Curry was a Raptor. Yeah, Del Curry was washed by the time he was a Raptor. And he was just going to sit in the corner and shoot a set shot. He's not running off of multiple pin downs and screens all over the place like his sons are. Yeah. And so I think the game is different in terms of what we're asking people to do. Lastly, as I filibuster on this answer.
Yeah, it's all good.
We have all these freaks. Wemby is a freak. KD is a freak. Whenever someone with the size to skill ratio is KD. Chet Holmgren is a freak. Maybe like we shouldn't be asking freaks to do these things. Like, dude, maybe it's not natural for a 7-footer to bring the ball up the court, cross you up, do a step back three, and on the other end, run out and guard the 3-point line. Like maybe we're asking these athletes to do something that isn't natural, and thus they're breaking down because of it.
Man, I went on a rant a few weeks ago when everyone was like, almost celebrating the fact that, like, oh my God, apparently Wemby's almost 7'7" now. This is crazy. What a unicorn. And I, like, not to be a downer or a pessimist, but I had a whole rant about how, like, have you checked, like, the history of guys that size in the NBA? Even the ones that were great, like all NBAers, they had very short careers. And again, knock on wood, I'm not hoping, like, I hope I'm wrong and that Wemby bucks the trend and modern advancements in training and all that help him. But, like, I wasn't sure it was something to celebrate, that it's like, oh, this guy who plays in this era is almost 7'7". And I mean, we're seeing it now. He's out again. Love what you said about the, like MJ versus load management stuff. Again, something I ranted about a few weeks ago as well, where it's like everyone just wants to dump on the modern player, right? And like, oh, they don't want to play or they're not as tough or whatever the case may be, when it's like, one, like you said, the game is being played faster than it has been in decades. Two, even though the dimensions of the court haven't changed, the responsibilities every player has and the actual amount of space and the amount of ground they're being asked to cover in a game is way different than it was even a decade ago, let alone 2 or 3 decades ago, when you consider the spaced out game has left defenses with more space to cover. Like everyone talks about how easy defense is now, or guys don't try on defense. Defense is actually more like sophisticated than it's ever been because it has to be to keep up with the spaced out game. So that's like extra wear and tear on players' bodies. Now I'll say this. I think I'm with you in the sense that it is something to be concerned about, obviously. Like anytime we're talking about players being hurt at a higher rate or like star players, like big names, the biggest draws being hurt, it's a concern, and like to a certain extent, the league should be investigating and being proactive about it. But there's another part of me where it's like, really, like the people who should really be concerned are Disney, Amazon, and NBC, who just paid a boatload of money for these rights over the next few years. Like from the NBA's perspective, they've kind of cashed those checks already. Now, the ratings are up so far this year, and maybe the NBA would argue that it's just a blip. It's 1 month. I looked into it too. Like star injuries are up slightly year over year from last year in terms of in season. But I think a big thing that's skewing people's minds a little bit is that so many guys were out to start the year. Like, right, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet even. Like, guys were hurt either in the playoffs or in the summer and haven't contributed at all this year. And I think when you can combine those guys with the ones that are, already hurt in season, I think we might put a board up too. Like, just a sample of some of the guys that have been hurt in the last few weeks. Giannis and Wemby and Ja, and the list goes on and on. I don't know if the guys getting hurt in season is as much of a issue as people are making it out to be this week, or if it's more so when you combine them with the guys that were already sidelined, it just seems worse. Now, the one thing...
go ahead. Is that a positive?
It's not a positive, but it's
not so bad because so many guys were hurt and couldn't even come back with an off season. And then a bunch of other guys got hurt. So it's not that bad.
I hear you. Now, another thing, too, is if you notice on the list, like we're showing, or even if you look into it, the injury and the part of the body that pops up the most on this list is calves, right? It is the calf. I think what's interesting, too, and I think Jeff Stotts, who does In Street Clothes, like looks into athlete injuries and stuff, actually said calf injuries aren't really up that much. But I think what's interesting is that I think because of the amount of research and precedent that we've seen when it comes to calf injuries being related to potential Achilles, like catastrophic Achilles injuries, I think teams are being more cautious than ever when it comes to calf injuries, rightfully so. So like maybe whereas a few years ago a guy would be day to day with a calf injury and we either wouldn't hear about it or necessarily care about it, now it's like, oh man, Wemby's got a sore calf, shut him down for 2 weeks. AD's calf maybe isn't completely healthy. Don't just let Nico Harrison rush him back because he's trying to save his job. Let's like pump the brakes there. So I think all this stuff is kind of bleeding together. And I'm not saying it's not concerning, but I do wonder if maybe it's not quite as much of a red flag as everyone's making it out to be.
Yeah, it's a red flag. And I love that point you brought up about the calf injuries. And it's not 100% clear in terms of causation and correlation, but Kevin Durant, famously, calf injury, comes back maybe too early. Achilles.
Halliburton in the finals.
Thank you. Halliburton in the finals. Calf injury, plays through it, Achilles. So, you don't have to be a doctor or play one on TV like I'm trying to right now to understand that there's a high risk there. The interesting thing for me is, like, I do think that not just the broadcasters, the league needs to be concerned. Because at some point, this is a competitive balance issue. Like, if we are trying to award who the best team is at the end of the year, that history is going to be written not necessarily on who the best is. It's going to be written by who the healthiest.
Yeah, it's a war of attrition.
Last postseason, 3 Achilles by star players on teams who thought they were going to win a championship. One team was 1 game away in the Pacers with Halliburton, but Tatum with the Celtics, the defending champions. So now all of a sudden, not only is that title over, the next year essentially wiped out. And you can miss me with the Tatum's going to come back after 10 months. Like,
he definitely should not.
He should not.
Yeah.
The Bucks, I mean, they look nice right now. They're trying to do like an early Cavs LeBron impersonation of just, we have this star who can get to the rim. We're just going to throw shooters around him and hope it works out. But the Bucks basically said goodbye to Damian Lillard and wasted all of that, capital in getting him because he hurt his calf in the playoffs and whatnot, and they knew he was going to be down for another year. So I think when you look at the team building aspect of this, and you've covered lots of teams, you've been around the Raptors as have I, you understand how much goes into it organizationally. Your process, your analytics, your scouting, your team building, the culture that you build, getting the board of governors and the ownership on board, getting your sales and marketing team invested to raise money to be able to spend, on basketball. All of these small little decisions by literally hundreds of people go into putting this championship product on the floor. And then we have one player in the red line. He has a soft tissue injury that turns into a worse injury. And it's blown up for a year, 2 years, or maybe a 4-year cycle. You have to start over. I think this is an epidemic in the sport. And yeah, those cashes are already checked in terms of the rights holders and what they're going to pay. But when you got to put in rules to determine who the all-stars can and can't be, or who the award winners can and can't be, because most players aren't playing the majority of the games, I think you should be asking yourself, wait, why are our best players not able to play most of the games? Yeah,
I think that's the fair question, and that's the billion-dollar question. I guess the reason that I can't buy that it's I guess it is a red flag, but the reason I can't buy it is because I know nothing will be done about it from the league's perspective to actually address. Like, we talked about
But why is that, though?
I agree. Something should be done. I've said for years the NBA would be the best product ever if it was 58 games. Everyone plays every team home and away like soccer. No conferences. Just play 58 games. No back-to-backs. Like, everyone gets to see a visiting team once per year. Like, I think it would be great. The NBA is not doing that. There's too much money on the line. Right? And even another thing I'll throw at you is so Darko Rajakovic has talked about this with the head coach of the Raptors because of the way he wants the Raptors to play, which is similar to how a lot of teams want to play right now, which is a lot of ball pressure on defense, pressuring full court more often than not. Intense ball pressure on the defensive end, getting out and running on the offensive end. I mentioned it being the quickest pace the league has seen in 39 years. And Darko talked in training camp about how, the style of play he wants the team to play, he doesn't even think it's possible for a player to play 12 minutes straight of that style of ball, right? Thomas Isalo, head coach of the Grizzlies, implementing a substitution pattern that famously Ja Morant is not down with, right? Because he can't find his rhythm. But it's shorter bursts. And again, because they want to get up and down the court quickly, they want to pressure the ball defensively. That takes a toll on a player's body. So if the league's not going to shorten the season because there's too much money at stake, and star players are going to be like, well, I also don't want to play shorter bursts because I can't find my rhythm. Guess what? When Ja's minutes ticked up in the few days after the blow up against his coach, he got hurt. I think he's got a calf injury. I'm not laughing at him getting hurt,
right,
but I'm saying there is a correlation there. So to the extent that it's a red flag, I guess there's a part of me that's almost become resigned to just well, this is what the league is now because the NBA is not shortening the season. Players aren't going to want to play 4-minute bursts. I mean, is it possible that teams on their own end up saying we can't play this style anymore because we're losing our best player. Hornets head coach Charles Lee, I asked him about this earlier this week when the Hornets were in town, about like how sustainable this style of play is around the league for 82 games. And his answer was essentially like, we don't know yet, we'll see. But I think that's why it's important for guys to be in better shape and better conditioning. Like at some point, if teams, players, the league office isn't going to change anything, that's where I bring it to where it's not that it's not a red flag, but it's like, should we just be resigned to this being what it is if none of these people are willing to make changes?
Well, that's where we are. We are resigned to it.
Right.
We shouldn't be. And I think there needs to be better communication and education, because I think we should challenge the assumption that you have to give up money in order to make change. I think maybe in the short term, but I think there are gains in the long term if you are able to make some changes to address what is a real live problem. And I think in the long term, if this continues to happen and people have an apathy around the regular season or an expectation that their star is not going to be there, I think slowly you will have an erosion of the popularity of the league, and then you're talking about a decline far from now. Feel free to weigh in the comments. I have a fix, which I would take to the PA and I would take to the owners and the board of governors and the league office and say, you can have it all. You can have both ways. You can actually make changes that make sense and make money. And here's what I would do. Number one, we're going to 60 games. You mentioned it. We've got 29 teams right now. You play every team twice. That brings you to 58. Where do you get the other 2 games? 60 is just a nice even number. Your blood rival, your geographical rival,
like that.
You're going to play 2 extra games with them home and home. Less on travel. Building up rivalries, which is important. So Clippers and Lakers, you guys are playing those extra games.
Travel at all.
No travel at all. Nets and Knicks, no travel at all. Magic and Heat, very little travel. For the Raptors, that would probably be, I guess, Detroit,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
I think that would be the logical. But you go across the league and you figure out who those matchups are. Number one. Number 2. Appointment viewing is what matters in sports. You know when the first round and the last round of a golf tournament's going to be. You know the NFL is, well, I mean, the NFL is trying to play on every single day. But theoretically, you know, it's Thursday, Sunday, Monday. Hockey's all over the place, but people know Saturday night, I know at 7 Eastern, I'm going to see my Canadian team, et cetera, et cetera. The league goes Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You miss football on the Sundays and the Mondays for the bulk of the year. I guess in some parts of the world, maybe you miss Sunday night baseball, like whatever. But it's appointment viewing. You know that's when you're going to play. Also, like, okay, Raptors, you're at home for this week. The entire week, you know you're going to be home. Then you're at home for the entire you're on the road for the entire next week. So none of this weird travel, back-to-backs. You've got time in between. You could, I don't know, practice every once in a while.
Which coaches are always complaining there's no time to practice anymore.
Always. So appointment viewing. Okay, so now we've got that scarcity, but we've got the ability to program it. So now I've got some predictable things for broadcasters and some scarcity. So not only do they want to get in because they can build their programming around it, there's a bit of a bidding war. Less local rights because we have less games. Yeah. Still some, but less. And so that's now driving up the price that is being paid by Amazon or Netflix or Disney or, in the future, the Score Bet, right? Yeah. Whoever's going in on these rights. So that's one. Now, players, I know what you're saying. We don't want to give up money. We don't want to give money. You have to look at it differently. Would maybe the cap come down because of the amount that you'd sell? Like maybe. Like I still think that yes, you're giving up 20 odd dates of parking and all of those concessions.
But each ticket would theoretically be more, right? And that was always my argument with the 58 games is that if there's less games, the demand, like less supply, roughly equal demand, maybe more, like the price should go up. If every team's only coming in once, you want to see that team.
And I think there are more people who are willing to stomach the ability of being a season ticket holder for 30 games. Or you split it with somebody that's 15 games. The biggest barrier of entry for people in terms of season tickets, it's like, am I going to go to all these games?
Yeah.
And then am I going to be stuck trying to move some, whatever? Which is why most people who do seasons, they do it with a group of 4 or a group of 6 or a family. So now you actually have more people. It's like, oh, like I could do this. I can move half of them or split them with a buddy, whatever. So I actually think you have more interest in season tickets because the amount of games you have to go to is less. So I'm with you that I don't think necessarily that revenue goes down. But even let's make an argument that it dips a little bit before it comes back or even goes up. I'm thinking as a player, not just how much can I make per year, how long can I be making money? And this is a measure for you to be able to stretch your career out a couple more years. Or, like, yeah, sure, Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter, they had long careers. But by the end, they were not impactful players. Your years of being a player who's a high earner, who's driving things on a team, who is of interest off the court in terms of brands, your years in the spotlight are longer under this plan. And so I think it makes sense to the players as well. I do think there is, and I sound like a politician trying to, pass a bill, but I do think there are wins for multiple people under the DJ plan.
I agree pretty much wholeheartedly with everything you said, and it's all those reasons and all those points are the same ones I made in the years that I've been trying to say, like, go to a shorter season. Have you ever watched the movie My Cousin Vinny? Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei. Anyway, there's a point in it when the judge, Joe Pesci plays a lawyer. The judge doesn't like him. Joe Pesci makes this like great argument. The judge tells him like how great it was, like you made salient points, whatever, and then he just goes, overruled. Yeah. That's what would happen if you walked into the league office and made those points. Great points. We can see the vision. Yeah, overruled. Because unfortunately, I don't think whether you're talking the governors, like the team owners, and the Players Association, if we're being honest, have ever showed that kind of like long-term vision or foresight. They're very short-sighted when it comes to, did you mention revenue might go down in the short term? We're not doing it. Even if you're right, even if the long-term benefits are there, I don't know if they're able to see past, short-term revenue's going down. We're not doing that. And it's unfortunate. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think that's kind of the way it is. And the last thing I want to mention too is because you mentioned the whole redlining thing a couple times, and this is something I argued a few weeks ago again in defending the modern players when it's like, yes, injuries have gone up, but I do wonder how many of these guys that are currently sidelined, maybe with some things that are like day to day, they're going to miss 3 or 4 games, are things that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, sure, MJ is quote unquote playing through them because it's just a bruise or whatever, but they wouldn't have the option to today because of those red lines, like the wearable devices these guys in practices, the monitoring of their soft tissues and everything that's going on, where it's like, again, I'm not saying injuries haven't gone up, but I also wonder how much of it is just like hypervigilance and teams in some ways maybe being overprotective of what they consider assets and their big money players, having this technology now, which is obviously good for the long-term health of players. But I'm saying,
off the board that we saw, would you not be? Like, if you had a choice of being overprotective or
I would be overprotective. I don't want my star player playing through a calf injury. But what I'm saying is it that injuries have, in all those cases, are those like instances of, players are just getting banged up more today or they're less durable? Or is it, in a lot of those cases, guys dealing with things that 30, 40 years ago they would have been forced to play through unfairly, whereas now teams are smarter because they have the technology and they have the metrics to be like, this guy shouldn't be playing, even if he thinks he can go. You know what I mean?
I do. And as my wife loves to tell me, both things can be true.
Yes.
And I think more players are getting hurt, and we are seeing more stars out, period, and also out with long-term injuries. And thus, the knock-on effect of that is that more staffs are going to be like, not us, and they're gonna make sure that guys are definitely okay before they come back. I mean, you have to handle all these players with kid gloves. They mean too much to the prospects of a franchise, short and long term, to do anything otherwise. And I think, and there's another reason why you should go to less games. Under 82, with the play-in the way it is, these games don't really matter. Like, they don't matter as much as they did. Yeah. And if you just know you got to get somewhere between, 10 and 6 and you're in and whatever, the best chance you have is not necessarily to get home. The best chance you have is to be healthy at the end and to be rested at the end. And so I would, and we've seen teams do it, right? It was just Pop who did it. And now most teams do it. That's a scheduled loss.
Yep.
That they're not going to play a lot of their big players, hurt or not, because at the grand scheme of things, between all 82, this game's not going to matter. Which is another reason why you go to 60, because that way every game does matter. And it also alleviates another real issue that the league has, and I'm not just saying they have it, they've acknowledged it by things that they've done to try to change it. It's tanking.
Yep.
Because you shorten the window with which people need to tank or are tanking, or it's obvious that they're tanking. With some of the betting scandals that we have, like tanking is directly tied to that, so you remove that aspect of it, and so I think there's actually multiple benefits to doing something where we're not playing 82 just because we've played 82 historically. And even I'd go further. Do we need to play 48 minutes? Would you say I'm out if we played 40?
Me personally, no. And I feel like most, like if you're an NBA super fan or like a sports super fan, I don't think you're leaving just because of that. And if you're a casual fan, you weren't important enough to the league anyway for it to matter. So again, I'm with you. I think these things should all be explored. I would say I feel like a shorter game might be explored before a shorter season. I don't think either one is coming anytime soon, but if someone told me one of those things would happen in the near future, I'd say shorter game because it's not as directly tied to revenue.
I would say it's not tied to revenue at all.
Exactly. So
someone's buying a ticket, they're there whether it's 40 or 48. I got another one for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we get rid of the draft lottery? Now, this has nothing to do with injuries. It's just changes that we need to make.
This is another topic for another show. But
you know what I love? I love what the PWHL has done. And as soon as you are, for those who aren't familiar, as soon as you are knocked out of the playoffs, mathematically, hockey it's point, but let's say for us, every win that you get puts towards your total of getting the first overall pick. So you have to win your way to getting a first pick or a second pick, and we're not incentivizing losing, and thus you're trying to tank. Because even, we flattened the odds, whatever. All right, still better if I lose. It's just that I actually have a less of a direct chance of making that painful losing benefit me in the long run. So it's almost wasted effort. I love what the PWHL has done, and it cleans up some of the gambling issues. It actually incentivizes people for competing and growing their talent and whatnot. Yeah,
I've heard that argument before, and my argument against it has always been that I think in basketball, the importance of a superstar and landing one is so big that I think you'd actually be opening up another can of worms where teams would intensely tank early to be one of the first teams that can then start racking up the lottery-related wins.
True, but it would be harder to toggle that down.
It's harder than it is
guys,
now, yes.
Like, we're going to rest you, not compete. Now we're competing again.
I mean,
like you're not...
I think teams are shameless enough to do it.
Fine, but those shameless teams are just going to tank from that date anyways.
Yeah.
So at least the back end, you're competing. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to shut down Damian Lillard early, right? You're not going to shut down your stars early to tank.
I've argued for the longest time they should actually further flatten the odds. So even though that might incentivize, like, the best non-playoff teams to back out at the very end because now there's more of a chance to win the lottery. But
the Mavericks a couple years ago.
Right, but I still think that would help stem the tide of the amount of teams like really, really racing towards the bottom. Because if you're further disincentivized from being the absolute worst teams, you're going to have some reasons to compete. And I've also said before, get rid of the floor, or I guess the ceiling. So in the sense of, right now, the worst team only gets a 25% chance to win it, but they're also guaranteed at least a top 5 pick. One of the things I've argued is they should get rid of that floor. All 14 lottery picks should be lottery drawn off, not just the top 4. And so you flatten the odds, you make it so that the worst teams have, not as great of a chance as they currently do to win it, and they go into the lottery with the risk of like, hey, if everything goes completely wrong, we could be the worst team and still get the 13th or 14th pick.
But that goes against the first thing you said, that the value of having a star is so great. And you could find yourself a scenario where the Dallas Mavericks, who are, I believe, going to miss the playoffs,
Yeah.
once again, get the first pick. And, someone who badly needs them, like, suppose the Jazz or the Pelicans or the Wizards or, the Nets, they would not get the first pick. I like the draft is a great TV and content property.
Yeah.
I don't actually think it's a great or fair way to assign talent.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, if I'm named commissioner tomorrow, you know what I would do?
No draft.
Well, no draft, yeah. But I still have a TV product.
The PWHL style for the lottery.
I would do. Well, there's that if I had a lottery or draft, but I would even go in further, get away from that. I would do matching. So just in the same way, your little Joe's coming out of med school. You got your 5 med schools, and you rank your order. And all the med schools, they rank the order of the candidates. And if you match with them, then you go to that school, and so on and so forth. So it forces both organization and player to have interest and commit to each other. So you're not stuck in a scenario you don't want to be.
Listen, I think we should have got Adam Silver for this show, man, because the takes are coming. The opinions are there. Like I said, I have a feeling Adam Silver would tell you you've made good points and then tell you you've been overruled.
Right, yeah. Fair enough.
And jet ski off to Las Vegas for the Emirates NBA Cup.
Do you like the NBA Cup?
I mean, yeah. I again, topic for another day, but I understand what they try to do with it, and I am happy with the fact that they found a way to bake it into the regular season, so that even people who don't care or like aren't paying attention can just be like, it's a game on the regular season schedule, unless my team's in the absolute final, and then it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple more topics. Rapid fire before I let you go. One of the things, we've known each other for a long time. The entire time we've known each other, which is almost like 2 decades now, for the most part, we could have been making jokes about how bad the Eastern Conference is in the NBA. Like literally our entire friendship. Yes. For most of the 21st century, you could make that argument, make jokes about how bad the East is, how unforgiving the West is, blah, blah, blah. It was expected to be the same this year. The West was supposed to have like 13 or 14 teams actually trying to win, competing for postseason spots. In the East, it was supposed to be the Cavs and Knicks, maybe in Atlanta or Orlando, and then a bunch of mediocre teams, the usual tankers at the bottom. That description actually fits the West this year. You've got OKC, Denver, and Houston, who are the class of the league. After that, you've got some solid but unspectacular teams in the middle, and then the most shambolic franchises in the league right now reside out west. Talking about the Clippers, who, as usual, owe their first-round pick potentially to the going to the Thunder, that currently, I think, are 6 or 7 games under 500. You've got the Kings, who have a lot of star names, but collectively can't guard 5 pylons. They stink. They're going nowhere, even though they're trying to win. The Pelicans, the most shambolic franchise, 2-13, I believe. Zion's missed more than half the games because, of course, he has, and they owe their first-round pick unprotected to Atlanta. Memphis, we know the Josh story there. He's lost his emotional spark. He's lost his athletic burst. I don't know which is worse, but they're going nowhere fast. Dallas, I mean, now that Nico's out of the way, I think they have every incentive to continue bottoming out because they control their pick this year, not again until 2031. That's a third of the conference I just named that now is either not trying to win or just incapable of winning, to the point where Utah and Portland, the conference's most shameless tanker, and like a scrappy but overmatched Blazers team, are currently in play in spots, like a fifth of the way through the season. In the East, the Celtics scraping without Tatum, 8-7, 3-way tie for 9th. 11th place in the East right now, over 500. To the point where if you look at projection systems, and I know it's early, I know that's the caveat here, but still, if you look at the projection systems, it's got 40-plus wins as a minimum needed just to make the East play-in this year, and maybe 33 wins gets you into the West play-in. So all that info, all that context, is it safe to say the Western Conference is actually overrated now?
So that is the longest rapid-fire question I've ever heard. So congratulations. Yes and no. Come see, come saw. The bottom of the West, as you educated us, sucks. However, although there's more depth in the East and more parity in the East, which makes what the Raptors have done that much more impressive. If we had to throw names in a hat of how many teams we actually believe can win a championship, how many of them are from the East? One.
1
maybe
to
two?
2. I think if everything breaks right for the Cavs or Knicks, they can do it. The three, like the two true blue contenders that reside out west, and the third best team probably does too in Houston.
Yeah, there are teams in the West that if I could squint and I can imagine a world where they win a championship. Like if Kuminga is engaged and Steph is healthy and Draymond doesn't assault anybody and Jimmy Butler's in a good mood and has his coffee. Like I could see the Warriors getting hot.
There's a fringe.
If LeBron turns back the hands of time and his management's not fighting with the Lakers front office and the exciting whites are exciting, I could see the Lakers going on a crazy run. Like there are some of those middle of the pack teams that are like, okay, they're gonna make it interesting. They'll make the Denver and Oklahoma City and I don't even know
Houston.
if I fully believe in Houston, but Houston work. Like in the East, it's the Knicks and the Cavs, and even saying that, I'm really saying the Knicks and the Cavs because the Celtics and the Pacers' best players got hurt.
Yeah.
Like so they just move up the queue. Not because I actually believe
by default
in their roster or their makeup and whatnot, or their stars in crunch time moments. So yeah, I think ultimately, I think the NBA Finals is going to be the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think a Nuggets Thunder series at any point is probably the finals, and I'm with you there. I think the West is top heavy; it's where the true contenders lie. But I do think it's overrated and a bit of a house of cards overall. I think like the team I point to is San Antonio. Obviously, Wemby's healthy; that team's ceiling is very high. But I think in prior years, Wemby faces a potential like weeks-long absence. And we're talking about, they're in the West, man. They're buried. Right. They might have just lost their chance at the playoffs in November. And then, the joke would always be, meanwhile, in the East, it's like, be within 15 games of 500, you're in the race. And that's where I think the flip has happened, right? Where it's like now, I looked at the standings yesterday, and it's like, yeah, okay, obviously the Spurs should be concerned on some level. Wemby's out. But it's like, they've got a 6-game cushion on the 11th place Clippers. They'll be fine. Whereas it's like, this is the first year where I could be like, they're actually lucky they're not in the East, where right now you would need a winning record just to be in the mix. And it's like if they go weeks without them and only win a couple games, all of a sudden they're buried. So that's where I think it's become overrated and a bit of a house of cards, where it's like, yes, it's still top heavy. The best teams still reside there, but it's not like this unforgiving conference where it's still unfair to play there because the East can't bury anybody and your conference can bury you in November.
What? That's why I actually think the Thunder are going to break the wins record.
I can see it, man.
Because
but just so people realize, Jalen Williams, who is their second best player, all due respect to Chet, who's had a great start to the season. Jalen Williams, the second best player on what was a 66, 68 win team, an all-NBA superstar, two-way superstar, hasn't played a minute yet.
And Chet has missed time.
Yeah.
They've had more man games lost than anybody else, and they've only lost one game. Now, part of that is because they've had the easiest schedule in the league, but part of the reason they've had the easiest schedule in the league is because they play in the West and they play in the worst division.
And they don't have to play themselves. The best team is never going to be on their schedule.
That's true. So I really think that they're going to push the wins record, and my pick is for them to break it because, and this also goes to your point about the West being soft, not only are they not really being pushed, they're not playing fourth quarters. So the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the league in clutch points and also leads the league in minutes not played in the fourth quarter lets you know that if it is close, they can pull it out in the West. But that so many other games are not close. But yeah, the West is bad, but also the Clippers, they're not going to be this bad for the entire year. You think?
Listen, the argument for them being better than this is, well, when Kawhi comes back for 2 games before inevitably being sidelined for 3 weeks, like Derek Jones just got hurt. I think he's out like 6 weeks. He was a big part of what they were doing. How long can James Harden James Harden is doing incredible things right now, and they're not winning. No fault to him. It's just there's not a lot of help around. Like, I don't know if it's going to get better,
Well,
man.
I guess what you're saying is the value of Norm Powell is that high. I mean, listen, swapping out whatever was left of Bradley Beal, which we saw was not much, for Norm Powell, didn't make any sense from a basketball standpoint. But I just can't imagine, unless, Pablo Torre has gotten in the whole organization's head. I can't imagine that they're going to be this bad for the balance of the year. They just have too much talent.
I think they'll be a losing team. And I think, like we talked about how the Thunder are doing what they've done and Jalen Williams hasn't played a single minute. They're doing what they've done, might win a second straight, and none of A.J. Demancia, Cameron Boozer, or Darren Peterson has played a minute for them either. And if the Clippers keep going like this, one of those guys might be a member of the Thunder next year, which is a whole other
wild
topic for another day. Okay,
wild.
Last thing before I let you go. The Raptors are off to a 10-5 start. I think caught even an optimistic Raptors fan as we sit here in Toronto by surprise. Even if you thought they were ready to take a step this year, maybe get into play-in mix, postseason mix, I don't think anyone saw this coming. They've played 10 of 15 games on the road, second most in the entire league. They played 10 of 15 games against teams that currently have a winning record. Now, they got some help in terms of some of those teams banged up, but you can only beat who's in front of you. Take all that into consideration. Tough schedule, a lot of road games. Pirtle being hurt early in the year, which really sunk them. Started 1-4. They're 10-5 with top 10 marks on both ends of the court. Only East team that can say that, and the only other three teams who can say that are OKC, Denver, and Houston. A lot of this does not feel like a facade. How much do you believe in what this team is doing as something that's real and that, fans should be getting on board this bandwagon?
I believe in it a lot. And you saw the signs, even though you didn't see the results last year. And really, the lack of results really wasn't the end of the world because they were trying to get a pick. But was a little confounding given the makeup of talent on the floor. Now, it is amazing to see many basketball media, mostly American, do a U-turn on their takes and the Raptors. And I've seen a lot of tweets of, really like this roster, really interesting roster when you were crushing it in the offseason. But I do think there is a value to never having to play someone who sucks. And when we evaluate teams, we generally think about who are the top three players. And okay, we expect this team to be better than this team. We expect Houston to be amazing because you had KD and et cetera, et cetera. But like the other piece of it, when we're actually trying to win basketball games and find nuances and kind of the X's and O's is, well, where's the matchup? Who on each end of the floor, either we're going at you and we're compromising all of your defensive principles because that person just can't keep someone in front of them, or on the flip side, we're not guarding this person because you're with us. Like, you're open for a reason.
Yeah.
And the fact that on both ends of the floor, they don't have to put that person on the floor. If they do, it's not for an extended period of time. I think there's a value in the fact that the baseline of just general ability and aptitude of the players they're playing is pretty high, and that goes a long way. And what that means is you're going to be in every game, assuming that you don't get into crazy foul trouble or give effort. The game is going to be there to win, and then just the addition of a 3-level scorer and great decision maker like BI has shown like, oh, okay, well we can close these games out. And so I think that's, to me, why I don't think second in the East right now is a facade.
No, listen, I'm with you, man. I think, as you mentioned, the signs were there last year. People weren't paying attention because it was a tanking team that was dealing with injuries and holding guys out. They had the second best defense or third best defense in the entire league by efficiency over the second half of last season. It's not, hey, let's cherry pick this 11-game sample here. We're talking the entire second half. Final 41 games last season, this was a top 3 defense. They're cleaning the glass as a stat where it's like expected efficiency, essentially location effective field goal percentage, which is like based on the shots their offense is generating. If they were hitting those shots at a league average rate from where they're taking them and whatever, where would the offense rank? The Raptors had the second best shot profile last season, which to me indicated Darko Rajakovic's offense was built on good principles and creating good shots. They didn't have the shot-making talent to put it into practice. And I think adding Brandon Ingram, whether he's the one taking the shot or not, the attention he commands, the defensive pressure he takes away from other guys, how that opens up everything for this movement-heavy offense. There's a lot of cutting and all that stuff has helped the reality catch up to the expectation, right? And the practicality of everything that Darko's running on offense. The defenses, for the most part, carried over. And I think when it comes to Ingram, you now have a guy that can create for himself in the half court. Yeah, maybe he'll hold the ball a little too long sometimes. He'll take some tough shots, but he's a guy who can make those tough shots. Those are the shots defenses are going to give up in the playoffs because they don't want to give up the more efficient ones, and you now have a guy who can hit them at a pretty good rate. He's been one of the best mid-range guys in the league for a while, has been great at it this year. You add all that together, the depth is there compared to last season. Again, they had this good baseline of the way they wanted to play. They just needed to add talent, half-court scoring, depth. They've done that. Even like Jamal Shed being a year older. Sandro Mamukelashvili.
Massive.
Great signing. One of the underrated picks of the year. And all of a sudden, like you said, there's not a lot of zero. There aren't a lot of zeros out there, right? When it comes to like the talent they're putting on the floor. They can help you in some way. The depth is there. They're much more functional offense with Ingram in there. In a conference that might be deeper than the West, but is way more wide open when we talk about the top of it. It's like, yeah, listen, am I going to pick the Raptors over New York or Cleveland in a 7-game series? No. But as I've been saying pretty much all year, I thought the range for this team was like 3rd through 11th. Yeah. And I think you're seeing that now. This is a team that if they're healthy and they keep playing this way, they could very, very easily find themselves in a 3 seed, a 4 seed, and we're talking about like a potential second-round team.
Remember when John Morant famously said, I'm good in the West, I'm fine in the West?
Yeah.
Which just immediately proved to be not true.
Yeah.
Like, literally, as soon as he said it, I think the Raptors can confidently say, I'm good in these. I'm fine in these. And I think there was, because I don't want to have total revisionist history, I think there was some questions around roster makeup in terms of, you got a lot of guys who need the ball. BI needs the ball. Quickly needs the ball. Theoretically, Scotty's your best player in a playmaker. You want the ball in his hands. RJ has been a high-usage player. I think that's fair, but I also think you have a group that likes each other. And so they've shown a willingness to share the ball. And I also think that some of the evolution of RJ's games, of Scotty's game, is maybe they've shown they don't actually need the ball. That RJ can be great as a cutter from the weak side. And Scotty can, get some screen assists as well.
Scotty's best offensive role is what he is now.
Yeah.
Somewhat of a point forward at times, a playmaking forward, but more so an off-ball guy, set screens, run in transition, finish around the basket.
Yeah. And so I think we also have to remember when we're looking at players, when we're looking at teams, that they're not fixed entities, that there's going to be evolution and growth, and that these players are naturally going to get better. I think that's what we've seen. So, yeah, the fact that the group really liked each other, and despite all of the losing, and you're around this team a lot more than I, but you got a sense that the staff really liked the team. And when you have that culture, all you need is like a little bit of winning to keep that belief going, and they've got that now. Because the best thing, I believe, that happened to them was the Blue Jays went on a run. And that allowed them to not really be bothered by that slow start.
Yeah, you're right.
Not have a lot of media around, not have questions, not have the pressure of, oh my God, Masai's gone and this is Bobby's team, even though like the team would have been the same. And look at the start that they got off to. You beat Atlanta, then you suck. They got time just to settle. And now, as soon as people start paying attention, they're taking off.
Yeah. Now, anyone who hasn't been paying attention, the Raptors are 10-5 in second East. Last thing I want to mention, only because I saw it floating around on Twitter a little bit with like some people doubting this team and using the 2021-2022 Bulls as like their comparison. I've seen multiple people be like, oh, they're just that 21-22 Bulls team. I don't know if you remember. That's the team. It was DeMar's first year there. He got off to a hot start. The Bulls were like first in the East in January. They ended up being sunk by Lonzo Ball's injury that he essentially never recovered from. Anyway, here's the difference. That team, its 3 highest paid players and best players were ages 26, 31, and 32. DeRozan and Vucevic were already 30 plus. And they had given up. They were out multiple of their own first-round picks in the coming years because of the deals to acquire DeRozan and Vucevic. This Raptors team's 3 highest-paid players, Barnes, Quickly, Ingram, are 24, 26, and 28, and they control all of their own first draft capital for the next 7-8 years, whatever it is. So I just want to caution anyone who's doubting this team based on some, very random and lazy comparison to a fellow maybe overachieving East team in recent history. It's not exactly apples to apples, and I think this team has a lot more upside than that team did.
Yeah, that Bulls team is basically the current Kings team.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it ended up
But
becoming.
the argument essentially that like people are saying is, that team looked great for a few months too and ended up just being a perennial play-in team. Again, I think that's a bit of a lazy comparison because there's way more upside here when you look at the youth and even just like asset capital.
Yeah, I mean, you could compare this team to that Bulls team. You could compare this team to the Thunder team from a couple years ago. Like, both would be wrong.
Yeah.
I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, based on the way, the way the last few years have gone, I think people would take somewhere in the middle for now.
For sure.
For right now.
For sure.
Donovan, appreciate you coming in, man. Let the people know where they can find your work in the coming months.
Yeah, at Donnovan Bennett on IG, on X, if you're still on there, on Threads. I have an account, I'm never on there, but that's my handle. And I will be doing some work with CBC, doing the Vanier Cup for them, doing the Winter Olympics for them. So you can catch my stuff there.
Appreciate you coming in, taking the time. Always appreciate talking hoops with you. For Donnovan Bennett, I'm Joseph Casciaro. For Adrian and Zach in the control room, this has been From the Logo. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.